Hi, everyone. Glad to see so many people here. I don't have video on my current computer, so you just have to be content listening to my voice rather than looking at my face, although mostly what we're going to be looking at is a shared screen. So I think we're just going to give it a couple more minutes, see if anyone else is coming. And in case anyone's concerned, this will be recorded so that anyone who can't make it to this training will be able to view it later. Okay, we haven't, the trickle of people joining has slowed down, so I think we should go ahead and get started. I apologize if you hear my cat howling for dinner in the background. She thinks it's dinner time, even though dinner time is at least 2 hours in the future. So, welcome everybody to the training for the new OPD Appellate Defender Data Database. This has been years in the making, really. I mean, I had the idea for this years ago, and it just kind of serendipitously all came together for us to be able to start on it. I think it was in last fiscal year, but development only really got rolling this year. And we've really spent pretty much the whole year working on this and getting it up to speed. You know, it's a really unique system because you know, the way we work, the way we function at OPD as a contracting system for appeals is different than most other appellate public defense systems out there. You know, I think it's important to start by just mentioning why we're doing this. Why are we creating this database? I think I've told everybody this at some point in the past, at various points in the past, what the whole idea here is, but it's been long enough in the making that I think a refresher is valuable. The idea behind this database is first and foremost as a replacement for our assignment system, AAP. You know, AAP is a pretty solid little system, but it's also very simple. It's just a list of names essentially, and it kind of goes down the list of, you know, whoever has an assignment available in the right county at the right case type gets the assignment. And it lacks the I mean, first of all, it doesn't know anything about case weighting, right? It was developed way before we ever had case weighting. And also, it just isn't responsive to kind of real-time information. AAP doesn't know in real time when you've gotten, I mean, it doesn't know when you've gotten a Division I assignment if you work in Division I, because AAP doesn't handle Division I at all. And also, it doesn't know when you've gotten a credit adjustment, partly because OPD doesn't know that until the end of the month when the billing is turned in. So we turn in, you know, we're doing all of this stuff by hand, and our software isn't really working with us. The idea behind this system is that not only it's a case management system, which is designed to be really valuable to facilitate your work, but on top of that, it's designed to give the courts the ability to kind of have automatic intelligent assignments where it's going to be able to look at your brief due dates, essentially. So if you've got, say, if it's going to assign you a case, and the brief for that case by default will be due, let's just say December 30th. This system is going to be able to look at your calendar, not a human looking at your calendar, but a machine automatically reviewing it, and it'll say, oh, that they've already got 2 or 3 briefs due in that same week. And look at this one. This one has already had 2 extensions, so that's pretty solid. That's probably might get another extension, but it's pretty solid. This one's had 3 extensions, so it's definitely set in stone. And this one's had 1, hasn't had any extensions, so we're going to discount that a little bit. But it does that for every attorney who's eligible to take the assignment, and then it kind of ranks everybody by who's got the most availability to take the assignment. And that's the and that includes all of your case credits in addition to just your basic assignments. And that's the whole concept. So I think I'm just going to go into it and explain and kind of show you how it works. I'd like to hold questions until the end, because I think you probably have a million questions right now. I think we're going to answer a lot of them just going through this. I know you're going to be sick of my voice by the time we're done with this, and I'm going to be sick of my voice too. But let's just jump right into it. And by the way, this system is going live, so to speak, on July 1st. So that's when you'll be able to log in. There still may be changes in the system, and in fact, we have the ability to make changes and adjustments for the whole month of July based on user feedback. So if you find anything that's not working or that needs to be adjusted, or that just would be a good idea to change, we absolutely have the ability to do that. So once you get your to get into the system on July 1st, you're going to get a username and password. You're going to get an email with a username and password that will allow you to log in. You'll get a link that'll take you to this screen. So Blake, if you could log in for us. And this is what Defender Data looks like. This is like the home screen of Defender Data. So there's a lot here, but the first thing to direct your attention to is the assignments. So over in the left there, that kind of block, that's where your list of assignments will appear. And so just so you know, in the beginning, we're not going to get the courts using this system until we have the attorneys using the system. We have all the kinks worked out. The courts kind of side of it is very simple, and I think not likely to present with a lot of bugs compared to the attorney system, which is going to need a lot more tinkering just to make sure that we haven't missed anything that's not really working properly. And in this version, this is still a development version that you're seeing, so there are still some things that are going to be updated before you get access. But also I should mention, if you're in a larger firm, you may not be doing a lot of this stuff. You may be having your paralegals or staff doing this, a lot of the, accepting the assignments, opening the cases, entering the data. Some of it you will be doing probably, like entering your time. So we will get to that. So at first, when you first get in, you won't have assignments because we're still going to be using AAP for assignments. So you'll still be getting the same old emails for assignments, and you'll have to create the case in JusticeWorks. So Blake, could you show us how that works? So you got that new case, that green new case button in the top, comes up with this name search. What do you do with that? Well, you enter the client's name. You can also enter the date of birth and the DOC number if you want. You don't have to, or you could enter, any or all of this information as much as you want. Hit the search, and sort of the maybe slightly counterintuitive thing is here. Even if you know you haven't represented this person before, you still have to do a search for their name. If you've never represented anyone with that name before, it'll just come up blank. If you've already represented the same client, it'll actually come up with a match. And so if that's actually the client, you're like, yes, that's the correct client, you'll click on that green, you see like a little file cabinet with a little plus next to it, you'll open the case under that client name. Or if that's not the same client, you will go to the bottom of the list and you'll hit the plus. But let's open it under the same client, let's do for this one. Because that'll give us an example of what it looks like when you're, have a case with a client who you have other cases for already. So this pops up the case information screen. And the fields you have to enter are all in red, except for the SCOMAS number and Odyssey number. You need to enter either a SCOMAS number or an Odyssey number, or both. They're just not highlighted because it's just more of a programming issue to figure out some kind of selective highlighting nonsense. But once you enter that and it's accepted as a valid input, it'll turn green. Then you select the case type. Let's just do a criminal appeal type, notice of appeal, select the division and the county, and the case role, which we'll say is appellant. You can see over here on the next box over, the case status, that has these green fields. These are required fields, but they're automatically filled in for you. So that has the opened date, which is just today's date or the date you're saving the case. The appointed date, which can be different, and you can change that if that's incorrect, but it just defaults to today's date. And the status, which defaults to open and active. You can also record the notice. That's the notice is the notice of appeal date. You can record that at your option. So once you've entered all of this minimal information, you'll hit save at the top. And that will save your case. Now, one of the first things you want to do before we get into what's on this screen, you may want to run a conflicts check. So Blake, can you show us where that is? So you can see at the bottom, you've got the People tab. See all these tabs at the bottom of the screen. The People tab is where the conflicts checker works. And the conflicts check button is at the top there. And Blake, could you talk us through how the conflicts checker works?
Yeah, so once you hit, if I go back in and I just hit conflict check, it's going to bring up all the cases as well as anybody that has been tied to this case. So it's going to first check by the first and middle name or last name, and it'll do all of our searches there and match. Then it's going to search first, middle, and last name. And so if it's a duplicate of the original search, it's going to say duplicate over here on the right. And then it's going to also be a different color, this grayish blue. But if I had related people to any of these cases, it would bring up all of their cases too. And so it'll automatically show you anyone tied to this person and all the cases tied to this person. And you can also print this conflict checker results out with all the results. You can hide any of the duplicates by just hitting this dupes button over here, and you can also attach any cases to this individual case if you wanted to by just clicking this link to current case. So that's basically the rundown of the conflict check.
Yeah, and so this is going to check. It's going to check clients. Obviously, they're going to be people in the system, but it can also check other types of people. So can you show us like the other how other people could be entered as connected with a case?
Yeah, so you can add a family member. So you have to search like you're doing a case, and you would add your relationship here. And then once you save that, this person's going to show up here. And then if you were to run that conflict check, it would also run a conflict for this other person as well. There's no other case information or cases tied to this person right now, but if there were, they would show up down here in the results. So anybody that's involved in the case is going to have that conflict check run against them.
Right. So, and you can, and maybe more relevant than family is the add involved button, which lets you add witnesses and co-defendants, so that when you run a conflicts check, you know, on a future case, you might say, oh, I can't represent this person because they were a, you know, a co-defendant on, you know, on a case where, or because I've represented their co-defendant, let's say, you know, because that you check that person, it'll pop up, oh look, co-defendant is connected, right? Because they were both on the same case together. So that's the conflicts checker. You know, OPD isn't saying that it's it's mandatory for you to enter all people associated with the case, but this is the, you know, this is how this is how you can really improve your conflicts checking by adding all of the people associated with the case to the people tab. You no longer have to kind of read through a transcript and just sort of have your memory jogged by seeing someone's name. You now have, you know, if that's the system you're using, if you may have another system in place already, but this system lets you, you know, lets you do this kind of quick conflicts check, and it's a good, probably a good thing to do after you open the case. And in order to do the conflicts check, you do have to save the case. You have to enter it, or you know, you have to accept the assignment. But for now, let's go back to the case tab and talk about that. So the important, you know, one of the big features of this screen is the bar on the left. That's where you see the client and all of their associated cases. And you can see they're sorted, the tabs at the top of this bar, you can see, you can sort by active, inactive, or closed. So that gives you really quick access to all of the client's cases. If you click on the bar, just like the empty part of it under the client's name, that actually takes you to a screen where you can enter all the information you want to enter on the client, such as address, where they're in custody, their DOC number. It has social security number. I think we're going to remove that because that's kind of radioactive data that is really sensitive, and you just don't want to have it in case of a breach. It's kind of the worst thing to track. And as long as you've got everyone's name, date of birth, DOC number, we don't need their social. If anyone disagrees with that, please let me know. But from everyone I've talked to, I don't think we actually need social security number. That's just, you know, comes standard. So you can enter all their contact information. This is really, you know, a really helpful screen for keeping track of client contact info and location and so on. You can also, fun feature, not necessary, you can also add a booking photo. If you click on the little blank photo icon there, you can add a booking photo. So if you want to know what your client looks like, and you happen to have a photo, you can attach it there. So just talking about the case screen for a second. We've talked about the first few kind of well, one important thing you have to keep in mind is the case team. That's right next to the case information box. That's where you're going to list the attorney who's assigned to the case. So especially if you're a multi-attorney firm, attorneys won't be able to see a case unless they've been assigned to it. Either they've been assigned to it or added to the case team. You can designate people as, you know, administrators, which gives them access to everything, which, you know, some organizations may want to do, you know, depending on how large they are and so on. But you have the ability at least to wall cases essentially, so that people only see the cases in Defender data if they are a member of the team. So you have a drop down there where you can select the attorney from your firm who, and this is showing every attorney because Blake is logged in as an administrator right now. Blake is our very talented programmer, by the way. I apologize for not introducing him earlier, but Blake is the one who is driving for us, driving the screen here, as well as making the fixes that need to be made. You can also, you have this plus button here where you can add other people as members of the case team. So you want to, you want to have somebody else review your briefs, which are uploaded in the system or what have you. You can add them as members of the case team and give them access. The rest of the information on the screen is really not mandatory. You have arrest information, which you can actually on the client screen, which we just showed you, you can record where the client is housed, whether they're in custody. The cool thing about the arrest information box is that it can track the number of days in custody, and that's less relevant for appeals because we're not dealing with speedy trial. But if you enter the arrest date and release date, you know, that'll show you the number of days in custody that have that the person served. Just a cool feature, not required. You know, none of this is required for you to enter unless you find it useful. You have the bond information, which rarely comes up in appeals, but it's not impossible, especially nowadays with COVID. Case flags. There's nothing in there at present. You can actually set your own, you can create your own case flags. We're going to do a training for administrators later for people who are going to be like the primary managers and data enterers of each firm to show you the kind of behind the scenes administrator screen where you can do things like create case flags. And those are searchable. So if you wanted to have a flag like that says stayed, you want to flag all of your stayed cases, you could then later search for that flag and get a list of all your stayed cases, because let's say you want to once a month or something, or once a quarter you want to check on the status of your stayed cases, that allows you to track those. You have the court information, which is a useful place to track the trial attorney, the judge if you want to, which will also, once you enter a trial attorney, so can you just show us that, like adding a new trial attorney, just show us that screen. So you can actually use this to store the trial attorney's contact information, which is, I think, pretty useful. Have it all in one place. You know, it's not required to enter their address or anything, but you want to enter their phone number, their email, and, you know, any of this information you want to fill in, that's up to you. Same with the judge. If you add a judge to the system, it'll also ask you what court they're from. So that's why you can't edit that court screen. It's editable in part of the judge's kind of contact info. And you have no obligation to enter the street address for the judge or the phone number or anything, or to even enter the judge if you don't want to. But you know, it might be helpful to know who the judge is. Especially, and Blake, actually, is all of this stuff searchable? If I wanted to find all of Judge Galina's cases, for instance, could I do that?
Yeah, you can search that in the advanced search.
Yeah, so you know, it's adding to the data entry burden if you want to track that, but it could be useful because, as maybe people know, there are potential issues with there are some issues right now going on with Judge Galina, right? So if you wanted to review what cases did you have that he was the trial judge on, and like double check those cases to see if maybe they should be investigated for a PRP or referred out for a PRP or something, that would enable you to do that. Same with prosecutor. If if you enter your prosecutors on this screen, and then one day there's a big blow up about a prosecutor who was you know, breaking the rules somehow, you know, you'd be able to find all of the cases you had where that person was the prosecutor. Or you could use it to track the appellate prosecutor, or if people want, we could have trial prosecutor and appellate prosecutor. We could add a field there just to track both. I don't know what kind of interest there is for that feature, but that's just how it's set up now. totally can be updated as people are feeling the need. The next box over is an important one. That's your attorney credit tracking. So this is this one need to be saved before it will show the credit tracking, Blake? Or,
I'm not sure. This is the first time I haven't seen it pop up, but if we,
yeah, maybe that's an.
Yeah, let me see here. Usually would say 1 right away there, so I'd have to double check with this client what's going on with that, but this is the first time I've seen that pop up, but it would say 1 here next to it, so we can definitely get that fixed for you.
Yeah, I've not seen this be an issue before. Generally, what happens is when you save a new case, it will show 1 credit there. And that, that's immediately loaded into the database. It's online. So as soon as you create that case, the system knows you've got that credit, and it won't be immediately assigning you more cases, right? So that's kind of why it's important to do timely data entry, at least once the courts are up and running. In the beginning, we understand everyone's going to be taking some time to get up and running on this system. So we're not saying like on July 1st, go, go, go. But it becomes, as the courts get online, it's going to be more critical to have prompt data entry. Again, not because you're going to get punished or anything, but the more prompt your data entry is, the more accurate the assignment system will be in like steering cases away from you when you're too busy to do them. So it'll track a credit by default. It'll also track automatically based on the VRP once that's entered. And we'll show you how that works in a second. And also OPD can record adjustments for when an adjustment has to be made for some reason other than for the VRP length. Going back down to the bottom left here, you have a place for LFOs. And I don't think these fields are totally correct for Washington LFOs, but that'll be updated. You also have this list of client factors and case factors. These are kind of checkboxes, just things that you can track about the client and the case if you so desire. And if there are things missing from that list or things that are on this list that don't make any sense, please let us know and we can definitely edit those lists for you. And the case weight is appearing here at the bottom. It's supposed to appear above an attorney case credit tracking, and so we're going to hide that case weight from there. So we just don't need to have it twice. Before we go, and the next thing I want to talk about is the tracking workflow events. But before we get there, I want to talk about consolidated cases and how that works. So if you have a consolidated case number, all you have to do is click the consolidated cases checkbox there, and then you can enter the numbers in this field that pops up separated by semicolons. And really all that does is just a place to write it down. If you need to open the consolidated case as a separate case, like let's say it's one of those cases where they really are 2 separate cases, they were just consolidated for convenience, and so OPD approves it to count as 2 credits. You're going to want to actually create the create the consolidated case. So what you do, you go to copy at the top there, and you can select how much of you can use these checkboxes to select which things should be copied. It defaults to just copy case and copy defendant. You click OK, and click OK again. And now you can see over on the left, you see the yellow box there. By default, each of these colored boxes only has 1 case in it, unless you have like a linked / consolidated case or a Supreme Court case created in the system. If they're linked or consolidated, they will appear in the same color box underneath the main case number. That'll be the original Court of Appeals case number. So if you go to the new case, what you can do is you can change the shouldn't have a Supreme Court case number, I don't think, because it's not a Supreme Court case. Don't know what's going on with that. What you can do is you can change the case number, and then that'll actually, okay, that fixed it. So you, like, why don't you change the case number and then save it for us? It's not really, well, yeah, it's not really realistic that they'd only be just different in one digit, but we're just showing, uh-oh, that's not correct.
Yeah, so what we need to do is link it through here.
Oh, okay, so we missed a step.
And then it would link them. Usually, the only ones that are going to stay the same color is going to be that Supreme Court normally.
Okay,
but you can go to the case through.
You want to just type in the 787878.
It's usually by the name. James. Hold on, let me.
Oh, there it is. It's right near the, oh, you had it. Just was right near the top.
It's a lot more Jesse James than I thought.
There it is, the second one. There you go. So, okay. So these cases are linked. They're actually not shown under the same color, but you do have in this, you have that, you see where you've got the little file icon with the 1 next to it, next to the case caption. That will actually link you, you click on that and you can see all the linked cases. Yeah, I could have sworn that the linked cases would stay under this. I guess they don't stay together if you give one of them a new case number. Maybe we should work on that. So this gives you the ability to link cases together, and then of course you can also just page between them on the side there. But this is just an indicator that they're linked. And you know, part of the functionality of that is like, well, okay, I've got 2 cases with the same client and the same trial court number, the same blah blah blah. Like most of the information is the same. The copy button lets you create a copy of it and then just change whichever parts of it need to be changed. Without having to without having to like retype all of the information. That's also how you open a Supreme Court case. We'll go over that later because that's a little bit later in the life cycle of a case. I want to try and have us stick to chronological order as much as possible. So once you've got your case opened, probably the most important thing to do is go into the workflow tab. That's at the bottom of the screen there. So the workflow tab, this actually shows workflow events for all of the client's cases. But so we're in number 787878 right now. The first thing to do when you get a new case is to enter the date you were assigned, and that's under the event called Counsel Assigned. So you can just type CO, and so you want to enter you can see at the top you've got the column names here: due date, date completed, organizer. That'll be the attorney or staff member probably who's entering or who's responsible for the event. And then if it's the kind of event that has a result, you'd be able to enter it in the next drop down over, but that doesn't appear for Counsel Assigned because there's no result like affirmed, granted, denied, that kind of thing. So you save that. And what happens is you get the next events in the sequence showing up. So this creates the designation of clerk's papers, statement of arrangements, those are due 30 days out, and it also creates the appellant's brief, which is due by default 135 days out. And these due dates will all be updated by extensions and other events as dictated in the wrap. But first, could you show us what that looks like on the calendar, Blake? So I've created my council assigned, and it's created all of these other events, all of these other due dates. So if you didn't catch that, can you show us that one more time? To get to the calendar here, you go to My Schedule, and you click the little calendar button on the left there. And I think this is one of the things that's going to be useful to all attorneys, not just for staff who are going to be entering data. This is a calendar that shows all of the due dates that are in Defender data. And so it shows you what kind of event it is and what the client is and what the due date is. Now this is defaulting to midnight. I know that's not the due date. That's not the time that our events are due in this state. Although maybe it should be, but we can definitely update that to correctly reflect when things are due at the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court. But the important thing is the due date, right? And so you've got the calendar. It shows you all of your upcoming due dates. And this is if you have permissions to view all the attorneys in your firm, for instance, you'll actually see a whole list, and you can look at everyone's calendar. That's going to depend on what permissions you have, whether you're count as an administrator or not. But like staff would generally have permissions to everybody, and managers would. So they can review kind of how busy people are and so on and so forth. So this is one of my favorite features of Defender data, because you just enter your information and boom, here's a calendar for you. Before you ask, it's not integrated with Google. I really wish it was, but it's a little bit beyond the scope of our project here, unfortunately. So if you go back to the home screen, Blake, go back to the case. So let's go back to the workflows. And I just want to demonstrate how they work. So when an event is supposed to create another event, that's what happens, right? So let's say we filed the statement of arrangements on time on July 23rd. So this is So you save that event. You save the date completed was July 23rd, on the due date, and boom, the VRP pops up. That's not your due date. That's the court reporter's due date, but it has it in the system so that you know when the VRP is due. Now, let's say, like so many court reporters do, the court reporter needs an extension. How does that work? So you just click the event, and you click this little green plus where it says extensions. You enter the new due date. The number, first, second, or third extension, etc. Any notes you want to enter, and OPD isn't blocked from seeing any notes that you enter basically anywhere in the system. So you don't need to worry, if you enter confidential information in the notes fields, OPD will not be able to see that. I don't mean that you would be entering confidential information here, but there are many notes fields all throughout this Defender data, some of which would have that kind of information. You can see Blake has entered the new due date. He's entered the extension, and it's extended to October 16th. Now let's say that now let's say the court reporter turns in the VRP on October 16th, as they're supposed to. now you can see that has updated the due date of the appellant's brief based on when the VRP was turned in, because that's when the appellant's brief is due. Now the extensions work the same way for any event. So if you get your appellant's brief due date extended, it's just the same procedure of clicking the green plus and entering the new due date. Then, you know, and for basically for all of the direct appeals, for all of the notice of appeal case types, these are set up. So the appellant's brief, the date when that's completed will set the date for the due date for the respondent's brief. That'll pop up when the respondent's brief is completed. When that's filed, that'll set the due date for the reply brief. And similarly, Blake, can you show us what happens when you enter the opinion? So when you enter the opinion being filed, and that'll be, you know, that basically will have the same due date and completed date, because it's not something that actually has a due date. I think you have to, yeah, it's best to enter both the due date and completed date. I think you actually have to no, you don't have to enter both, but it's best to enter both for these events that only have one result, or that only have, I think we need to enter a result as well there. Oh, there we go. There you go. So when you enter the opinion, that will create due dates for the motion to publish. There should also be the motion to motion for reconsideration. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe since you entered affirmed, it's not popping up a motion for reconsideration. Not sure about that. Regardless, you can see that's creating a due date for petition for review and for motion to publish. And because the motion to publish, if you file one, pushes back the due date for the petition for review, the date completed of the motion for publish will actually change the petition for review if you file one. If you're not going to file one, you can just delete it. And you can see that you've got the red delete key, the red delete button up there. So if you can just show us how an event is deleted. It's not too complicated. Just hit delete, hit OK, and away it goes. So there's, you know, they're not popping. It's not popping up because like you have to file a petition for review or you have to file a motion to publish. It's just letting you know kind of the default due date. You can also edit all of these dates. So if it pops one of them pops up, but it's like the court has already sent you a letter with a different due date in it, you can update this to be correct to whatever the court is telling you is the due date. Probably the next most important tab is the transcript tab, and luckily it's a very simple tab. This is a really important tab to enter because this is what's going to control your case credits. So these fields where it says court user, request by, requested, expected, received, these are like all these different dates. These are going to be changed to just be it's going to be the court reporter over on the left where you can enter the court reporter's name, the due date for their transcripts, and the date the transcripts were received. And then over here on the right, you'll have the number of pages, which is really you can enter the trial judge or the county. I think the county will default to the case county, so you don't have to enter the judge, but that's available. So you'll enter the number of pages there. And if it's more than 800 pages, hit save. Okay, so yeah, Blake has to enter dates here just because the system requires you to have, it will not require you to have 5 dates entered in the future, but that's just how it's still not quite live yet. You can also note here where it says add notes there, so you can add notes about the contents of the transcript or whatever you need it, whatever you want to keep track of with regard to that transcript. Now, if you go back to the main case screen, hopefully. Okay, so for whatever reason, this case is not it's not tracking its original credit. If it was functioning properly, that would now show 2 credits. So you can see this is a system that allows you to like immediately track your case credits without having to report it to OPD on the activity sheet on a monthly basis. And there will be a report in the system that allows you to see that and get like a real-time picture of the fiscal year for your credits, those credits you've had tracked. Okay, another I think really valuable screen, which is part of this case screen, is the time screen. So if you can go down, that's at the bottom next to schedule. We'll talk about schedule briefly in a second. So this allows you to enter your time on your cases. So this is going to replace Harvest for anyone who uses Harvest. And this is, so you can enter the tasks, the task you were doing, the amount of time. You can also start a timer running. Now this requires you to keep your, I don't know why that's disabled right now. Or is it disabled? Oh, no, it's not. You can actually start a timer running. That'll require you to keep your browser open for that timer to keep running. Or you can just, track your time on your watch, however you normally do it on your phone, and then come back and enter it later. And you can enter comments. Those will be hidden from OPD, so OPD won't be able to see anything other than the amount of time and what the task was. So you don't have to worry about that. So you gotta click save to save the records, and then you can, in addition to the comments, you can also have notes on the records too. It just got that much flexibility there. If we could go back to the schedule real quick. So the schedule looks a lot, the case schedule looks a lot like the case workflow, but the difference is the workflow has certain set events, many of which trigger other events. And they're the main events in the case, like the briefs and the opinion and decision on a commissioner's motion to a commissioner's like ruling terminating review and independency, for instance. But the schedule allows you to enter whatever you want. You're not limited to just an existing list of events. Any event type that anything you want to track, like you got a letter from the client on this date, you can track it using the schedule. Or you want to have something reminding you to send a letter on a certain date. And any kind of event, phone call, whatever you want to track associated with the case that's, it has to have a date and time and an organizer and a subject. That's kind of the only, it's got to fit in this form here, but anything that fits in the form, you can track on the schedule page. You also have the ability to create ticklers, and those can be associated with particular events. Like we've had a request to make a tickler with petitions for review. And the way those work is you can create one yourself for a case. So okay, if you can just show us how that works, Blake. So we don't have any tickler types really created here, but we can very easily, and I believe your firms can create their own custom lists of ticklers. The administrators will be able to do that, or they can be created on an OPD wide basis, which basically you're going to indicate there, what kind of tickler it is, what date, what the due date is, and how many days in advance you want to be reminded, and you enter it here. Some workflow events can also be customized as like automatically being ticklers. So if you want it to say, always give you a 30-day reminder to file the petition for review, that can be integrated into the petition for review workflow event. But then, can you show us like what does it look like when a tickler is created? So the ticklers will actually show up on your home screen. They'll show up here, and is that no, Blake?
If that was created for me, where this, if I go back to that case,
right,
it's created for
Kate Benward.
Kate.
But it would show up on guinea pig. But not
It's
really.
going to show up right here.
Yeah, yeah. So and that'll show up. That'll show up when it is, if you say I want to be notified 30 days in advance of the due date, then when it's 30 days in advance of the due date, the tickler will pop up, right? It'll pop up down there.
And you can clear them out by putting a completed date.
Yeah,
and
so when it's
away.
Right, so it'll be a list there of all your ticklers. Of basically, these are all your reminders that the system has had programmed in, and then when they're done, you just go in and you click, you say, okay, this is done. You give it a completed date, and it'll be cleared out. Tasks is another system that works a little bit like that. Can you show us how the tasks work? Is that part of the case screen, or is that the tasks are standalone?
No, it's on the home screen. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the case real quick, just make sure we haven't missed anything yet, and then we'll go back to talk about the rest of the things on the home screen. So let's see, we've got time ticklers, motions, and this one, I think it works a lot like the schedule, but it's a little bit more, it's specific to motions. So you can indicate the motion type and the ruling. And this list again is not has not been customized for OPD, but it certainly will be. So this is a way for you to track all the motions in your case. So you track when they were filed, when there was a ruling, and what the ruling was. We've talked about the people screen. Let's look at the notes screen briefly. And so the notes screen is just, it's for attorneys and staff just to record notes. They're all grouped by case number and by client. And you can actually, it looks like you can actually combine notes with alerts. So you want somebody to, alert. You can add users to alert. So, you want to add a note to your case and then, alert other people. It'll actually pop up on their home screen, this note, that'll pop up as an alert, and they'll say, hey, read this note. And then the last thing is documents. And this is another cool feature. This allows you to upload any case documents you want to Defender data in order to essentially you get web-based access to all of your case documents. You can organize them with folders if you want to. So you can have a folder for the record, you can have a folder for the briefs, or whatever you want to do. You can have, yeah. And then what you'll do to upload files is you'll just drag them and drop them, or you can use the file dialog to add them. And I think you can bulk upload, right, Blake? So you could drop the whole file in there.
That's correct. You can grab multiple at one time, put them in here, and attach. And it'll put them in.
Can you just show us an example of uploading a document, just so we can see, just have a visual of what that looks like and what you can do with the document once it's uploaded?
Yeah. One second.
So you can see over here, you've got a category for documents. I think that's a really important feature of it. So now he's uploaded that document. He's in the folder where it is. Now he can view the document, which shows it inside of a web browser.
But you can also add your notes as well to this document if you needed to.
You can download it, right?
Yeah.
If you click the little paper, is that the little paper, or? Oh, there it is. There's a button right at the top there where it says download. So you can download it if you want the original document or a copy of the document on your computer. And you can also, if you could just show us the categories. I don't know if they're edited to be correct for OPD yet or not. But
Don't
that
think we've
allows,
added them yet, but
yeah, you'll be able to designate a document as being a, yeah. So it's the drop down's not entered yet, but you'll be able to, you know, designate. Okay, here's the VRP. Here's the clerk's papers. Here's the appellant's brief, the respondent's brief, et cetera. You'd be able to designate the type of document to help organize them. And yeah, I think that's one of the best features that we have with Defender data, which is like cloud storage for all your documents. Secure cloud storage, which meets the criminal justice, the FBI's criminal justice information, security guidelines, which, Defender, Justice Works is, they're experts in that, security standard. So, I think this is a much more defensible and better way to do it than, say, uploading things to Google Drive or, Dropbox, which are, I think, comparatively more hackable than Defender data, which is designed to be a criminal justice information system. So that covers the case screen. And
we also have a place for charges if you want to.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that. So yeah, so we actually have, this is one thing we do have correctly customized for OPD. We have all the Washington State, we have all the RCWs in here. I mean, we might be missing some, but we got it. We got the list from, I think, from the Sentencing Guidelines Commission. So it's pretty. I might, if it's not 100%, it's close. So you can enter all of the charges, and this is optional for you to. We're not going to require you to track this in Defender data, but if it's helpful to your case management, you are welcome to use this screen. And then if we could just quickly go back to the home screen to talk about the items there we haven't covered yet. So we've talked about, well, let's quickly cover assignments. So once court users are on the system, assignments will appear over here on the left. And when you get assigned a case, it will appear in this box, and you will click to view the assignment. You can click on where it says pending assignment over there. You just disregard the ones that say reassigned pending assignment. That's just assignments can be reassigned, and that's what they'll look like if they are reassigned. It'll say reassigned pending assignment. But most assignments, when they're first given to you, they'll just say pending assignment, and you click over here. You can disregard the buttons at the bottom. All you'd be able to do is, when you click there, is just look at the information, the caption, the case numbers, case types, etc. And then to actually accept the assignment, you'll click where it says attach case, enter the client name, which is the same search that we looked at earlier when you were creating a new case without an assignment. Click the search. If that's the right client, you'll click the little file with the green plus, or if it's not the right client, you'll go down to the bottom and just hit the plus to create a new client, a new case for a new client. And it's the same case screen. The difference is all of the information from the Court of Appeals, all of the information from the assignment is entered by default, and you can't edit it. After you save it, you can edit it. So if you find out the court made a mistake with the case number, you can change that. But when you first save the case, you can't change it. So you first have to save it, and then you can edit whatever information you need to. So that's what it looks like to accept an assignment. It's even easier than just entering the case yourself. And once the courts are all online, you may be asking, will Division 1 use this system? And the answer is, I really, really, really hope so. They haven't committed to using it. I know Divisions 2 and 3, I think they'll be really thrilled with it, and they'll love it because it's I think faster and slicker than AAP, and has more features that they can use. But I'm confident. I'm optimistic that when we show it to Division 1 and show them all the stuff it can do and explain to them kind of the magic of the assignment kind of logic behind it, that they will understand how valuable it is for them to use. Now, you know, we're not over there saying like, oh, it'll help the attorneys. It's like, no, it'll help the courts, right? It'll help the courts get their calendars in better order, because you'll be assigning fewer cases to attorneys who don't have time to do them, right? I think, you know, I don't know what else there is to say about this screen. I think some of these things we'll cover in another training for administrators. Things like auto documents. So Defender Data has the ability to create automatic merge documents from templates that you create. So if you want to create an automatic introductory letter out of your template, you can just you know, use the AutoDocs feature to generate that. And you can even have it set where like certain events will automatically generate certain documents. So I'm not totally up to speed on that yet. So I think we'll have to save that for a future training in the near future. Today is just to kind of get everyone familiarized with the basic data entry features, and I think that'll keep us occupied enough that we won't be immediately ready to jump into the advanced features. But let's just talk about the tasks feature real quick. That's, I think, the major one we haven't. You can see the alerts feature. There are certain types of events that will create an alert, which will show up there, and then you can click on those alerts and you've dealt with them. You also have the tasks feature. That's where you can click on that little checkbox and just set tasks for yourself. Those are just reminders of things you need to do. It's really for your own workflow. Every user can handle that. So with that, I think we might want to go through the questions in the chat first to address the questions that came up during my hour of talking. So Greg asks, is the conflict check just checking appellate cases or superior court cases as well? So it's just, I would say to that, it's just checking what's in Defender Data, what's in our Defender Data system. So it doesn't have a link to SCOMAS or any outside databases. So I don't know if you can unmute yourself, Greg, or if someone needs to unmute you if you want to elaborate on that at all.
Well, I'm just wondering, I mean, does it have any ability to run, as other contractors enter conflict information regarding similar people, does it have any ability to sort of aggregate that?
I'm not following.
Well, say for instance, we don't catch that a particular witness testified in our client's case, but that witness testified, our client testified in that person's case somewhere else that another contractor has. Does this system have the ability, when we run a conflicts check, to draw on the conflict that another contractor noted between the same two individuals?
I don't believe so. I believe it's all locked down between firms. So. And yeah, I believe it is all locked down between firms. Is that right, Blake?
As of right now, yes.
So potentially, though, we could. Yeah, I mean, that might be something to think about. If conflicts checks should be organization-wide and should indicate, you know, let's say Washington Appellate Project doesn't show a conflict, but oh, hey, we're showing an associated person. Yeah, I mean, that's something to think about. I don't know what the implications would be for confidentiality. Not something I can answer off the top of my head, but that's a good question. I mean, I can answer it now, as it currently stands. It's just works off. It's locked down. Basically, all information is locked down to each firm. So you won't be able to see any cases or information or anything from another contractor. The exception being if a case needs to be reassigned from one contractor to another, OPD actually has the ability to do that, and it'll transfer everything except for their notes. So that's kind of a cool feature. Maria's asking, can we enter aliases? Does it check for conflicts in aliases as well? And I believe, actually, I wonder about that. Can you show us the client screen? Is there ability to enter an alias?
Yeah,
yes.
you can enter as many aliases as you need, and the conflict checker will check against those alias names.
Okay, they've thought of everything. Maria also asked, in the workflow, the due dates created, does it account for weekends and holidays, or do we need to manually check the due dates are court working days? I think the answer is yes, because this is not Defender Data's first rodeo, but Blake, you can answer that one.
I would have to completely double check, but I'm almost 100% positive that it does just do work days.
Hey, Blake,
Yeah,
Blake, the secondary piece to that is you're going to have to set up the scheduling attorney and put holidays in there, and that's how it would know to skip holidays. Does that make sense? You know, we have that schedule attorney.
Yeah, it's already set up to do that. We would just
Okay.
Have to put in the holidays for which Washington State follows.
So Gideon, we've got an account that basically you log in, you create events, and those events are stored as holidays, and it knows to skip those days.
Yeah, and everyone, that's Ian. Actually, I don't remember what Ian's title is, but he's our senior programmer or contract manager.
Yeah, I'm a senior developer as well as a team lead.
Cool. Yeah, so Ian's our team lead on this project. And yeah, thanks, Ian. So yeah, we definitely have the ability to, I mean, it will account for weekends, and it will account for holidays too. We're not going to make you manually check that. That would be pretty hokey for like a shiny new system. Jan's talking about Harvest actually being a really good program for tracking time, and I'm glad that you found that to be the case. But I wouldn't despair completely at switching from Harvest to Defender Data, because Defender Data is accessible on mobile. And it doesn't have an app the way Harvest does, but you can access it through the browser on your phone. And because it's web, both are online, whether it's on your phone or on the computer or on a tablet, it should be pretty seamless. So I'm optimistic that you will. It isn't quite as slick as Harvest, because that's a specialized time tracking system, and this is a system that does time tracking plus whole case management. So maybe not quite as slick, but I think it will be good for our. I think once you get used to it, hopefully it will be satisfactory. Yeah, so actually Merrick answered that question in part. Thanks, Merrick. Merrick's also asking, will we not be able to access it offline? So there is a PC application that you can download, but I think it still requires you to be online. Is that right?
It does. Yes.
Yeah. So it's online only. Unfortunately. So if you're you want to read stuff on your laptop, while you're traveling and you don't have Wi-Fi, you will have to download things, while you do have access to internet. Skylar's asking how. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, we also found that a lot of clients can tether their phones as the hotspot as well. That makes sense to make the Wi-Fi if you are en route, on like public transit or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
Right. So, okay, Skylar's asking how long documents are stored. Are they all stored forever? That's a good question.
They are stored until the user deletes them. Or if you know, a firm or if you as OPD as the organization ever said, hey, we don't want our documents on there anymore, we can of course go and magnet wipe the hard drives.
Okay. Do we have the ability to set a retention schedule actually?
That would be custom development. We haven't done one before. Usually we just, you know, somebody will call us and let us know that they'd like a document gone.
Okay, yeah. So at present, they're stored forever. When we could potentially look at creating a retention schedule, but you know, that would be, it probably wouldn't be that tricky. It would just have to be something that each firm could control, because actually, if you look at the WSBA guidelines, you know, that's kind of the best we have in Washington State for how long attorneys need to save documents, and they're pretty vague. They're not, and they're pretty optional. I think there aren't, you know, OPD's contract says you have to save everything for 6 years, but beyond that, it is really up to the firm, and you know, guided by ethics rules and WSBA guidelines, how long they save everything for. Yeah, so we have two questions about what happens when the database goes down, and I imagine that means you can't do anything in it. But I mean, how big a concern? Like, how often is the database down?
We have over a 99% uptime, as well as disaster recovery sites. So we use X-Mission down in Salt Lake. So let's say we have, you know, Salt Lake's known to, you know, maybe we'll have an earthquake. If that happens, we have disaster recovery locations that we switch immediately. So you really should see no downtime. I want to say in the past 2 years, our longest downtime was 2 hours, and it was during maintenance. So
Okay, and maintenance is typically scheduled for like the middle of the night, right?
Maintenance, we will, you know, we'll probably get with you, Gideon. You can send out a just a, you know, reminder to everyone for the maintenance time. We just take it offline, and then it comes back on.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think we're getting a really kind of a top-notch feature here, or you know, product here from a company that really specializes in, you know, hosting and protecting this really vitally important data. So hopefully we won't see much downtime. So Skylar's asking, is this a reliable way to store our closed case files? I think yes, and yeah, you can the cases have a status, you know, in the case information screen. Once a case is closed, you can mark it closed, and it'll just be stored. You know, you're not going to have it on your hard drive for the rest of time, which is, you know, a worry as your hard drive gets full with, as you've been doing this for long enough, your hard drive gets full, and it's like, what do I do with all these, you know, 10-year-old files, right? Well, putting them on Defender data, you know, is viable. Now, of course, you don't have to do that. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to add any old. One thing I want to emphasize is you don't have to add any previous cases, any cases that were created prior to adopting Defender data. You've got no obligation to enter those in. That's all. That would be a ton of data entry to do. You can if you want to, for sure. And for NK and Washington Appellate Project, we are converting their databases, so they might not have complete information on their prior cases in the system just because of the limitations of the data conversion. But the huge amount of prior data will be entered just because they've got those databases going back so long. It was really important to us to make sure that got at least like the case names, case numbers, client names all got moved over without making somebody enter, I don't even know how many thousands and thousands of entries. So Jan's saying this seems labor intensive for support staff, and I want to emphasize that a ton of the information, a ton of the tools in here, and a ton of the information is optional to track. We're not saying that just because you can track something in Defender data, you have to. I mean, the workflows are, are the important part, which I don't see it as being any more labor intensive than like tracking it on a calendar, which is essentially what it is, right? And if you see any ways for us to simplify the work, and to simplify things, like we've had suggestions from like John from NK was saying, you mean I have to like hand type this when it's already in the other field? Shouldn't it just autofill? And so we've made changes like that, where it's like, this really, I already typed this information here, don't make me type it again, right? That's the kind of stuff it's pretty easy for us to do, to have things be auto-filled from one field to another. We have a number of copy buttons, if you need to copy something from one case to another. Those are the kinds of features that we've been adding and that we have the ability to add. So if we have, like Jan, you're saying, it's pretty, tracking the client's housing location. Like, you don't have to track that in Defender data if it's not useful, if you don't have the staff time to do it. If it's just like staff are too busy, they don't have time to keep careful track of where the client is moved to. You just want to look it up on the DOC inmate search whenever you need to contact them. That's fine. That is an optional thing to track. You have the ability to enter it, but the only things that OPD really needs you to track are kind of, we need you to open the cases, we need you to track the VRPs, and we need you to track the workflows. In particular, the brief deadlines. Those are the brief deadlines are the ones that get tracked in the system. Or that are part of the assignment system. I mean, we'd really want you to track all of the case information, because this is a work in progress. And if we find like, well, the assignment system isn't working the way we want to, maybe it needs to be looking at other kinds of events. It would be really helpful to have all the different kinds of, and not talking about every little thing, but the major workflow events, like the due dates of the brief, the reply brief, when the opinion is filed, when the petition for review is filed, that kind of thing. So AJ is asking, do the due dates adjust based on case type? The answer is yes. I believe I only have it entered for notice of appeal, because other case types, other appeal types tend to have more flexible schedules that are like set by the court. But for any of your basic notice of appeal, yes, it'll use a different due date if you're in a dependency, or if you're in a criminal matter, or if you're in a non-dependency civil matter like a 7109. It will, and if there's any errors, we can fix them. I've done my best to enter all that information into the system, so the due dates should be correct. So that, exactly like you're saying, that the opening brief in a dependency will be due in 30 days after the VRP, not 45. AJ is also asking about the case number auto indicating the case type. It doesn't at present. That may be something we could do. I know I have shown Blake the where the case codes are listed. Although, the thing is, once courts are, that might not be the most, well, it might be nice for the court users as well as for the attorneys. But once the assignments are, the courts are up and running on the assignments, when they enter the case type, well, actually, no, I'm contradicting myself. When the courts enter the case type and then you accept the assignment, that'll automatically copy the case type into the new case that you've opened. So you won't have to select from the dropdown if you're working off of an assignment from the court. Now, the disadvantage of going off of case type is that SCOMAS has 7 case types. And we might well want to have more case types than that. Like, I've had it requested that we have for instance, SCOMAS type 7 is dependency / termination, but I've had it requested that we have a dependency case type and a termination case type, so we can separately, we can know which type of case it is, which we won't know if we just go off of the SCOMAS code. I think we could probably do it like that with the automatic determination of the case type from the trial court number. Although it is a little bit complicated because you have the complication of you can have either a SCOMAS number or an Odyssey number or both, and then you have to code it in for like what happens if they're different, and they shouldn't be different, but if somebody types it in wrong, it has to have logic for like throwing an error and all that stuff. And also, SCOMAS is a little bit tricky because like type 2 is actually civil, I believe. And so civil includes 7109, but it also includes mental health, and it also, includes, other like oddball case types that we don't see very often. Like I think probably a DNA test might be criminal. Anyway, like our categories of cases don't quite line up with SCOMAS's categories of cases. So I think we probably will keep it with having a drop down, because that just provides us a lot more flexibility. Any other cases while I still have a little bit of, any other questions while I still have a little bit of voice left? Just give people a second to type if they want to type, or if you want to unmute yourself and talk, I think you can do that. Again, I apologize. I don't know if people have been hearing my cat this whole time, but I'm sorry about that. That's the blessing and the curse of working from home, as the pets are around and able to participate in conference calls if they so choose. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming, everybody. If you have any questions, you can email me, and I will. Did Skylar's question about time tracking get answered? I'm not sure.
The question, Gideon, was, are we required to track our time on here, or is that optional too?
Oh, I think OPD is going to ask you to track your time on Defender data, yes. So, I don't view it as being materially different from what we ask now, which is that, we ask you to provide your time tracking on the activity sheet. The advantage here is just that you have it online, you can do it on your phone, you can set a timer, so you have more features for time tracking. Or you can just do it as you've always done it, which is just enter it, whatever method you use, stopwatch on your phone or watch or app on your computer or whatever you want to do. But we are going to ask you, we are going to be using Defender data as our time tracking. The advantage of this, one of the big advantages for you, or for your organization, is that Defender data basically replaces the monthly activity sheet. So we no longer need you to report your VRPs to us on an Excel sheet because you'll be entering them on here. We no longer need you to report your time to us on an Excel sheet because you'll be entering it in Defender data. We no longer need you to report your assignments, briefs, or closings because, again, they're all in Defender data. And so OPD will be able to download a report every month that will serve as your activity sheet. It's like we'll have it at our fingertips. And so will you. If you need to review your cases or your case activity, you'll have it all organized in here. And my ambition is for Defender Data to replace the monthly invoice too, so that from inside of Defender Data you'll be able to generate your invoice, you'll be able to certify it and send it off, and OPD will get it electronically and pay it all without making you print out, sign it, scan it, and send it in. As well as handling, optimistically, I'd like us to be able to handle, reimbursements too. Like if you have a reimbursement request for an interpreter, I'd love it if you'd be able to just like scan the interpreter invoice and send it off to us, through Defender Data, and just kind of make it the one-stop shop for billing. But that is for another fiscal year. That's, after we get this system really up and running, we're going to be looking at what additional things we can do, including making it the kind of billing hub. Yeah, so Marie's asking, on July 1, we'll have information about how to access. Yeah, you should be getting, on July 1st, you should be getting an email with a link and a username and password to log in. So that will be your key into the system. And then kind of the goal is, we'd like people to basically enter all of their open cases with their brief due dates, and we know that's going to take time. You can't just do that all on July 1st, but that's going to be, that's the important thing, is to have all of the open cases entered into Defender Data, and once those are in there and all the due dates are in, then the courts will be able to use the assignment system, and it'll actually be producing intelligent assignments based on due dates. Until then, it'll, we'll have some additional work of just having to enter new assignments by hand. But once we get the courts up and running, it'll be that much easier. Okay, and I'd like to say I recognize the really compressed time schedule of this. I would have liked for us to have a longer testing trial period before quote unquote going live, but it really is related to the kind of unprecedented fiscal tsunami that's coming at us from COVID-19, that is really important for us to deploy this system and pay for the deployment of the system while we have the funding to do so, because while the budget hasn't been impacted really severely yet, we are expecting some kind of impact, and it's hard to know what that impact will be. But having to pay the kind of final development costs on Defender Data during that kind of that fiscal tsunami is just something to be avoided. But the fact that we're going live on July 1st, again, it doesn't mean we expect you to be like, have mastered this system and have all of your data entered on day one. We know there's going to be a learning curve. The word live means that the data in the system starting July 1st will be real data, and it will be live data. So that means it won't be wiped ever in the future, and it's not like fake test data. It really counts. But it doesn't mean that we are snapping our fingers and switching over case tracking systems in one day. There will be a process, and again, if you have suggestions about things that aren't, if you find bugs, or if you have suggestions about things that could work better, or you don't know how to do something, definitely shoot me an email. There is also I think we may be sending out further information. I think we're going to work on a user guide that will have some. They'll be able to refresh you on some of these procedures, and should include some of the information like that we're requiring the workflows, the VRPs, and the time tracking to be entered, and then just to reinforce what's required and what's optional in the database. Okay. So I hope everyone's excited about this as I am. I understand there's trepidation about the data entry aspect of it, but I think once this is up and running, it will be a net positive. I think we'll see fewer we'll see fewer instances of people getting assignments when they're really too busy and it causes a huge time crunch, because that's what I've seen, especially the last couple of years with the caseloads being lower. I haven't seen anybody whose overall workload for the entire year is unreasonable, but there are still times when people are really, really busy, and just through pure chance, right? Because they got assignments that were not originally all going to be due at the same time, but then based on when the VRPs were turned in, they were. And if you had an assignment system like this in place, we could have avoided that, because the system will steer assignments away from people who are already starting to see that kind of clustering of due dates. And like I said, still be tinkering and fixing and improvements. We've got Blake working on our project for the next month to make those improvements, and even beyond that, we will have the ability to make fixes and improvements as needed, just maybe not quite as quickly. So it's not, the product that you're seeing on day one is not necessarily, the final word. That we're still able to make fixes and improvements that make it really work for you, and that's what we're committed to doing. So again, thank you everyone for coming, and everyone have a lovely rest of your day.